I went to bed on the 6th of January 2014. And then the next day I woke up, couldn't feel my legs, didn't really know why, they felt a bit like rubber. I couldn't really understand what was going on. Things were just a bit weird. Basically, I was diagnosed with incomplete paralysis, but no one really knew why. So I was just having test after test and having physio and hydrotherapy and all the rest of it, but nothing was actually resolving the problem. I'd look in the mirror and I'd feel like I was a monster. I would consider myself a burden on my friends, on my family, on society as a whole. And it was actually the February of that same year that I attempted my own life. And it was actually having a conversation with someone where someone actually stopped long enough to listen to what I had to say that changed my life.
When we first met, he was still using his chair. So he used his wheelchair a lot, and he used his crutches, and he was on both crutches at the time, most of the time. When he first became ill, he said to the physio, he said, you've got to have a goal. And he's like, yeah, I've got a goal, Everest. And she's like, maybe you just should stand up first, maybe you should just learn to just walk to the, cross the kitchen. We are really, really strong-willed people, I think, and nothing is, I don't know, nothing is ever a problem. You can always overcome things. You can always find a way of doing things. And I think that's the thing that kind of brought us together, to be honest.
I don't see challenges as obstacles. I see challenges as something to overcome, and that is my mindset. That's always been my mindset. If someone says, "Oh, you can't do that," I'm like, "Can't I?" Or can I just not do it in the way that you say I can't do it? And doctors and physiotherapists and neurologists, they're very much like that. They're like, "Oh, you need to take it steady now, Mr. McAnsh, and you can't be doing stuff like that." And yet here I was climbing mountains in a wheelchair. Everest gave me something to work for. It just gave me something to aim at. It had always been my aim, by the way. It had always been the challenge. It had always been where I wanted to go for, and I'd wanted to climb Everest since I was 7. So it was always something that I was going to end up doing. But it was like, well, that's the dream. What do you do after that? What's next? And then we set sights on Kilimanjaro, which for me, I was born in South Africa, so Kilimanjaro is the roof of Africa. Kilimanjaro is going back home, right? We decided to do Kilimanjaro, and I was training on crutches, and I was actually in my wheelchair the day I met Sean. You meet people in your journey in life, and some people will see your spirit and your faith, and they'll go, actually, this guy is worth investing in, and other people will pass you by. This was a guy that not only seen that there was something in me, but could see the value of what I could do, not just as an individual, as a human being, but also for the brand. And then went, actually, this guy's worth taking a punt on, and then supported me right the way through the process. Putting myself into Sean's shoes now, he's probably like, who is this guy in a wheelchair telling me he's climbing a mountain, first off. Secondly, he wants to do it in my KAFOs. In the back of his mind, I don't know whether he was thinking this just seems too crazy or too good, or this guy's nuts, or it's just not going to happen.
Initially, I thought he was nuts. I knew nothing about the guy. It's quite a bold statement to make, especially sitting in a chair. I think it's just dumb luck how we managed to come together. We were almost getting ready to pack up, in fact. And he sort of just rolled up, introduced himself, asked a few questions about the KAFO, and then said, "Yeah, I want to climb Kilimanjaro. Can you help me?" Seeing people who have been played a rotten hand of cards stand up on their own 2 feet, so to speak, and march on is inspiring. I think it's pretty cool. There's not many jobs in the world where you can do that. And I think working with the people that we've been fortunate to work with, it just sort of opens your eyes as to what the human spirit is capable of. I don't think you could do more than 15 to 30 minutes without being in considerable pain and fatiguing considerably and having to sleep off the rest of the day. Whereas now in the KAFOs, they've allowed him to progress much, much longer than 30 minutes of activity. It's given him freedom, essentially. It's allowed him to free up his hands. It's allowed him to be more independent. He can pretty much do whatever he wants now, whereas beforehand, he would have had to have plotted his way through life Is there wheelchair access? Am I going to be able to walk? How easy is it going to be for me to transfer? Who's going to be able there to help me? No, he doesn't. He puts his braces on, he stands up, and he goes on, gets on with his day.
Complex regional pain syndrome is a really interesting condition because some days you can be completely almost like normal or whatever normal is, and some days you are in so much pain you can't walk at all, so you'd be crawling out of bed, you wouldn't be able to get to the loo. So there's a lot of confusion around the condition, I think, because when people see you out walking one day and the next day you can't get out of bed, they don't really understand it.
Day to day it's made massive change. I mean, like, this has altered my life completely. Like, I am as close to I would have been in 2014 that I could ever be. So pain medication I've dropped. I'd probably take less than 98% of the pain meds that I used to take. I would say where before I was in a constant 10, sometimes even an 11, 12, 13, I now may be in a 1 or a 2, which is actually no different to anybody else who's done the same level of exercise that I've done at that particular point. There was parts in Kilimanjaro that would have been impossible. Literally, not even like I might have been able to do it. No, like the Barranca Wall, I would never have done the Barranca Wall on crutches. It would have been impossible. Summit Day, I'd never have done that on crutches, either up or down for that matter, or because someone was willing to take a punt on me. My wheelchair is literally up my attic. I don't use it. I haven't used it since the day I got on my KAFOs.
The fact that we've been able to give him something that's made him more active and taken away his pain, allowed him to stand up, given him more balance, allowed him to live his life, is dumbfounding, to be frank.
Not everybody's going to want to climb Kilimanjaro, and doing the crazy challenges like that. But if it helps somebody just to make the awareness that anything is possible and you can climb your mountain, that's exactly why we're here and why we do what we do.
When I sort of measure success, what do I measure success on? Do I measure success on riches? Do I measure success on value? No. I measure success on the one person I inspire, or one person I motivate, or one life that I change, or someone that says to me, I've done this because of something that you've said or something that you've done. That makes me successful. That makes my whole journey worthwhile. I've come down off more mountains without summiting than I've summited, but I haven't failed. I've learned from those things. But then if you really go down into it and say, if I succeeded at everything I'd ever achieved, I wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be having this conversation. I'd have successfully killed myself. And my greatest failing has been my greatest success. My failed attempt at my own life has been the starting journey of a very successful existence. And am I honoured and privileged to have been able to say that? Absolutely. Am I happy that I'm probably the biggest failure I'll ever meet? 100%. Would I change my life? No, not in any way, not whatsoever.